It is 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, August 12th, 2021. I'm calling the meeting to order, and for the purposes of a quorum is present. Number. Oh, okay. Now then. The first item is the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on this agenda. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak during the public forum? Seeing none, I will close the Citizens Forum. Item number 3, discuss and provide direction on the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget for the City of Paris. Mr. Path?
Evening, Council. All right. City Council had asked for a budget workshop tonight, and so we had just a quick run through of the budget on Monday night, and so I had not received any specific questions from anyone up to tonight, and so what I would propose is I have some slides here. What I'll do is I'll do like a quick summary of last meeting. Hit some highlights. Then we have our consultant for the pay study. He is on Zoom. He's ready to go as soon as I get to him. Then once that's completed, I then have a slide per each department. So if you have a question on a particular department, be it library or community development or streets, we will have a slide for each department. It's going in order, and I will summarize the expenditures, the revenues, some highlights of that department, and then if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those. If I can't answer it, we have a whole team here of individuals who can speak to that. So to those questions there. So they're here as your resource, as your asset, in case you have questions. And so, but we have that. So unless the council has a specific request to start off with, I'll start with my slideshow. So. Okay. All right, let me do this here. All right, just again, real quickly, our financial policy, I think it's always good to start off with this to remind ourselves as to what our goals are as the city. Again, the overall financial policy of the City of Paris, as shown through its proposed 21-22 budget, is to serve the public with professionalism, civility, honesty, I lost it, integrity, okay, there it goes, and provide a safe and prosperous community by being responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and to provide quality, efficient, and effective services that facilitate and enhance the quality of life, recreational enjoyment, economic opportunity, responsible planning, improvement of infrastructure, and public safety for all. Again, our priorities from Monday night are, of course, the proposed budget shows employee pay through the pay study, capital purchases, new positions. We have 2 new positions in the proposed budget, realignment of line item budgets, maintaining operational services, and Texas property, the SB2 there. We will mostly touch on tonight just mainly the employee pay in general, of course, through the consultant, then also capital purchase. We have those discussed in each one of the slides for each department. And then new positions. Summary, I won't go through all this again, but overall we have 53 separate funds. So we primarily operate out of funds 1, 3, 10, and 45, 1 being general fund, 3 being airport fund, the brand new fund we started this year, 10 being the water and sewer fund, and 45 being the sanitation fund. Again, we are also using the coronavirus relief funds this year for some much needed emergency management and some water and sewer expenditures, and the American Rescue Plan Fund, again, for some water and sewer infrastructure purchases. So, and then again, we are looking at, I am proposing that we do use part of the reserve to help achieve some of our capital expenditures. All of this for the purpose of getting our pay study done this year and moving on to the next phase for fire and police in phases 2 and 3. Again, the property tax rate, I won't go over this all again, but we are looking to lower our property tax rate this next year in 21-22. This is all in accordance with SB 2. Gina and I worked on that form together, and we accomplished that and submitted that to you at the last council meeting. And again, this does not mean that we are decreasing the amount of taxes coming in. We are lowering the rate. It just values have gone up, and but our rates going down. It's an inverse relationship between those two with those. So the total proposed property tax rate would be 45.373 cents, which is operation and debt combined. Again, valuations, those are going up. As you all know, the state required that the local appraisal district move us up in value in the city, and I think the county as well. They are looking at going up 19% this next year. Again, we cannot control that. That is done through the appraisal district as by order of the state, as I understand that. But because of that, obviously our rates go down because, again, with SB2, if values go up, rates got to go down in order to give that same dollar amount plus a 3.5% growth. And I think with that, I'm going to turn over to Matthew Weatherly. He is on Zoom. He is our consultant with public sector personnel consultants. We hired him last year, and he's been working with us diligently. It's been a pleasure to work with. And so we have a Zoom feature here. I'm going to give this over to Russell, and I will have him start talking. So. Okay, Matt, go ahead and say something real quick. Okay. Make it a little louder there, Russell. We're trying to take care of some feedback on our end. Just a second, Matt.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you just fine. So do you just want us to go with this, Russell, for now? Okay. Well, Matt, why don't you get started? And there we go.
design pay grades and pay tables for all classifications. So, the list of agencies is probably in my packet, but certainly the communities that were utilized. That we utilize to answer that first question, how are we doing, how are we doing, how are we. Everywhere that we go, we hear about labor, trades, skilled trades, commercial driver's licenses, positions that are hard to fill. Anecdotally, we've got Buc-ee's or Amazon or whoever we've got that kind of start to build us in a certain direction. I think as well for a lot of our entry level and skilled positions that are really kind of your line staff, core of service delivery. I think just a couple of other examples here: police officer and firefighter. Looking at entry being utilized on these two seniority steps to kind of build out, at least loosely build out a pay range or a pay grade for the purposes of comparison, but really it's kind of an entry to entry that I guess we'll focus on for pay plan updating, pay plan development. Your start average 42, market average start about 47. And then fire, I think same thing. Low at entry, kind of using the seniority steps to model out what a full pay range might look like. And then ultimately taking advantage of the market data that's available in order to establish pay grades that are competitive for each classification. Is that very job specific rather than people specific at this phase? At a high level, I'll take civilian and middle office as all jobs. We surveyed about 90 different jobs, using plus or minus 5% to define competitive. About 70% of our sample falls in the more than 5% behind category. And so, there are corrections that we can make to back into at least being consistent, right? If we have some jobs that are at 80% of market and other jobs at 90% of market, how do we maybe stagger implementation so that we're more consistent for all jobs over the some of those big ticket items such as health insurance, who pays for what, how does our paid, time off look for vacation and sick time, only really kind of finding as far as that side of the audit, is on the pension side and CMRS. I think that was also kind of discussed a little bit on Monday. About 6 of the survey cities are 14 and 7. 3 of them are the 12 and 6. So we got a little bit of a weird average, but I would put you just kind of slightly below market when it comes to pension contribution on CMRS. My last slide, and then whatever we do kind of for audio in case there's questions. We have proposed pay grades for all jobs, pretty much a hands-off process. Making sure that really objectively as a third party, we've gone through and allowed the market data to dictate all of our findings and recommendations. Pretty objective. Trying to get jobs to be at pay grades nearer to market. And then how do we phase in and affect the people? 90% of it is a paper exercise, a pay grade, and job description review. The last 10% is the budgetary part. The last 10% is the people part of where do I need to position my pay grades in order to recruit, in order to retain. So that's what the city manager's been working a lot harder than us on is the fiscal impact, trying to get to something that's sustainable, something that's affordable, that gets a start on bringing salaries nearer to market. It sounds like it had been sometimes since the study had been done, and sometimes since we had been able to get salaries getting closer to market. So kind of a multi-year approach, pretty common amongst the cities that we work with. We've got a chance to work with right around 100 cities in Texas, about 20 of them this year so far. So just kind of city council season right now. It's been a budget season for everybody. So the last 3-4 weeks have been very, very busy with discussions exactly like yours. Where are we? Where do we want to be? If we're not where we want to be, how do we get there? And how long might it take and what are the costs? I'll stop there. I have my phone in front of me too, so if we need to change up the audio or anything, I'll make sure that I can hear your end. But if there was anything that you wanted to spend a little bit more time on the slides, or if you have any specific questions, I'll try to answer those.
Quick question. Just two questions that come to mind after kind of reviewing over the budget and what you guys have proposed. What was the process? The 6 cities that were, what was the process behind the 6 cities that were chosen? What was the criteria based off of? And then is there something else that you guys would probably look into, or you guys feel pretty satisfied with the 6 cities, obviously, with the study, but what were the pros and cons for these,
There were actually 10 cities.
10 cities, sorry.
And what I did with that, and Matt, are you over? Well, the way that went about it is, of course, I consulted with him at first, and what I went into this was, again, what's fair for the employees, what's fair for the taxpayers. And also, we cannot compare it to a McKinney or a Plano, those kind of communities, nor should we compare it to a Detroit or a Bonham. And so I tried to find communities, first off, population-wise, that are relative in our range. And because typically, a town of 25,000 roughly, they typically have a lot of the same departments, a lot of the same positions, roughly the same number of employees, roughly, never one-to-one ever. And but so I started with that. Then secondly, I went to the U.S. Census website, and I started to go through demographics. I started looking at, okay, what is the average wage and average income for the community? What is the average house selling for? What's our demographics for race and so forth? And I tried to find communities that were in that ballpark. I didn't want to obviously. I didn't want to pick too affluent, nor the opposite way here. I tried to find towns that are right in that ballpark there, because I know it could be. You don't want to cherry pick. You don't want to cherry pick either way. Obviously, you don't want to pick a bunch of communities that obviously favor the employees highly, but at the same time, you don't want to pick a bunch of communities that highly favor the taxpayers the opposite direction there. So I try to pick communities that seem relatively similar to ours. Now, again, there's no one-to-one. I think Marshall's probably the closest to us in that true comparison of the U.S. Census data. But I went through probably 30, 40 different factor points looking at like I said, average income, average wage, average household income, just all those pieces in there. I don't quite remember off the top of my head now, but a lot of census data is what I went through. So,
Yeah, I see that now. I was looking at the different the other memo, but yeah, I like the cities that you guys have looked at and compared to. I think these are great cities to kind of gauge off of, similar to us. The only other question I have is the little confusion that I had reading over some of the material in terms of the pay study. Let's just say I know you're going stepwise, and this would be an annual increase. Is that correct?
annual increase?
On wages?
Well, yes and no. Yes for the civil service employees, no for the non-civil service.
Right.
And so civil service, yes, I'm proposing a 3-year phasing with about 75% of that up front now because we have the funds now, then about 12.5% next year, 12.5% the following year. That way in 3 years, we will be caught up. But by adding COLAs the whole way, 3 years from now, we will not be 3 years behind.
Gotcha.
So I've done that for the civil service. Non-civil service, we'll do it all this year. If we get done this year, we are then competitive. And so going forward.
Going back to the I guess bulk 3 years, the question I have is, if you were to increase, and then let's just say something happens, another COVID or some devastation happens, and our budget kind of, skyrockets or goes down. I mean, does the council have the, I guess, authority at that time to look over the budget at that time and say, okay, well, let's make some adjustments and maybe instead of going 12 this year, maybe we'll go a little bit less?
Absolutely.
Just wanted to make sure that once it's voted on, is it set in stone, or is it something that we can go down the line and take a look?
Yeah. Nothing past this year is ever set in stone. Obviously, we have a contractual relationship for like a bond or a loan or something like that. Those are set in stone, obviously. But no, the next 2 years are not. They're not guaranteed. And so, as I was saying to my staff, the civil service staff, years 2 and 3, it could be 12.5, maybe 12, or maybe 10. We may have such a good year, maybe we do 15. Get more of it done faster. And so, I will be doing this exercise on a much smaller scale next year to see, okay, where are we at financially, and can I truly get that 12.5% as I planned? But there's always that possibility that we cannot quite get that full 12.5% there.
Perfect. That was just, I would happen to be curious about that, just in case if something were to happen. So, Gotcha.
I have a quick question about the equity, which would be the value to the city of a job based on the qualifications and the responsibilities. Do you ever find that you need to maybe reclassify a job from what our city has classified it, or our charter? And if you go about reclassifying that in the plan, would you do a study just of that one job classification and make those changes? Because I noticed you said every 3 to 5 years, these are generally salary study is updated, and I would hate for an employee that their job was reclassified because maybe of growth in the city or the department they're in, and I would hate for them to have to wait 3 to 5 years to be reclassified.
Well, if I can jump in real quick before Matt on that, yes, what we would do is if we were to create a new position or reclassify a position, yes, my HR director and I, we would work with Mr. Weatherly. Okay, this is the new job description. What is a good range for that? In fact, we've actually worked with him on a few other positions, the airport manager, for instance, and so that's a brand new position. And so we worked with him to get some scales for some other communities, and even our assistant billing official, we worked with him to get some ideas off that. And so, yes, if we were to reclassify or create a new position, we would be communicating with Mr. Weatherly to kind of see what other towns doing to create a fair wage for that.
Thank you. Kind of one more thing. Is there elasticity in the plan so that it would keep up with the consumer price index, or you mentioned COLA?
Yes, and so what Mr. Weatherly had did when he produced his numbers is that he called it aging, but it's basically applied to 2% COLA, because the data you have today is for this fiscal year. We're applying it to next fiscal year. And so we added a 2% to the data for the budget here. And so again, what we'd recommend going forward is once we get caught up, we stay caught up. And that's where we would look at a reasonable COLA, whatever we look at the CPI. Then every year I would propose to you what we feel is reasonable, whether it be a 1%, a 2%, whatever we feel is right that year. Every year is different. Some years 1% is enough, some years 3%. It's whatever we feel is comfortable, what we can afford to do, obviously. But yes, the goal going forward is not to stop. And otherwise, 5-10 years from now, we're back to where we were today. And we don't want to kick this down to our descendants. And so, yeah.
I do commend staff and the council for taking this on because it is way, way overdue, and our staff certainly deserves the increases. And in the past, it's just the can's been kicked down the road too long. So thank you for doing this. Any further questions of Mr. Path or Mr. Weatherly?
I got some for Mr. Path, but I didn't want to take any more of Mr. Weatherly's time.
Okay.
He can hang on for a while, so, yeah.
Okay. A few questions. First of all, thank you to the employees that are here, the ones that couldn't make it, maybe even the ones that are watching us on Zoom or Facebook. Thank y'all, first of all, for what you do. Y'all continue to persevere and do things and work, and whether you're in an office job or you're out in the heat, and I commend you for what you do, and I appreciate every one of you for what you do. Grayson, thank you for putting together not a short budget, but a good budget. I'm still kind of locating some of the stuff in here, so if I flip around a little bit, I'm sorry. To the citizens of Paris, I've talked to several, some with some good thoughts and good ideas, and some with that I differ a little bit on. Several good things, several things I didn't totally agree with, some negative things. That's noticeable. As a statement from me to the public, I would like to say that, Grayson, I believe in you. I believe in your product. I told you that when we hired you. I told you that 2 days ago. And I believe in your team. I believe in what y'all are doing. We're by no means perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody in this room is perfect. But we're closer to there than we have been in a while, in my opinion. I think that the citizen, and there's some discourse, and you read it on social media, you read it, you hear it at the coffee shop. There's a little bit of that old mentality of, if we're going to pay them too much money, we're going to give too much to this, we're going to do much of that. So I'm glad we're having this workshop to try to answer some of those questions. The biggest thing going forward that Paris is up against is we're competing with other cities. We're competing with other municipalities. We're competing with other companies and businesses to keep plenty of people working for the city to provide the services that everybody wants. I think the biggest thing for people to understand is it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. Nothing good happens overnight. And it takes, I think, a couple years before we get to that next level. We're leaps and bounds past some of the communities that we compete with, and then there's some communities that are leaps and bounds ahead of us, and we're after them. And we want to be number one. We want to be the best. We've got a lot of good young people that are moving back to Paris. That is the key to growth. The key to us doing more. The key to us being better. Is young people moving back. It's very refreshing, I guess, for the city of Paris to be able to have that. I grew up in a community where not a lot of people, hardly any young people that grew up there came back there. Wasn't much to offer. Paris has got a lot to offer. Paris has got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that's going to come down to offer, from developments to the EDC through private development of businesses and several different things. And I'm really, really excited for those. I want to see those move forward. I think whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, you can vote however you want to vote. There's ideologies on both sides that support and not support what we're talking about doing. I will say this. This community, we have, in my opinion, pulled back on paying employees a fair wage. And a fair wage meaning, look at our study. We're 5 to 16, some of them even more percent, back from competitive salaries in local communities. And I know, even on the civil service side, I know police officers and firemen, and I don't know any public works guys that or utility guys that really travel much, but I do know a lot of firemen and police officers that leave this community, live in this community, and they drive to Frisco, they drive to Greenville, they drive to Mount Pleasant. You know, the only way you fill positions is you're competitive in your wage, you're competitive in your retirement, and you have a good place to work. We have all of those except for the competitive wage. I think the biggest question I have going forward is, and this is the 58 million is that revenue, and that's our revenue plus our is there about a $10 million deal in there that's cash on hand? Is that what that's showing? Because I'm showing a 47,324. Is that right? I'm just asking because I'm trying to make sure I've got the right numbers.
47,324.
47,324, 413, I think, is the combined budget, and then you add your. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. I'm trying to
If you want to go back on your slides there, that's where I pulled that number. And I've like I said, I think that's all the funds together. I think our general fund, we were looking at around 25,570,627 plus sewer and water, got it to like 47.
Yes, yeah. The combined operational budget between general fund, and I also had airport, coronavirus, American Rescue Plan, water sewer fund, and sanitation fund is a $47 million figure there.
Okay, so the overall budget, where would that 11 or 10 or 11 and some change? Where is that 11 and change? The 58,602 overall budget.
That's the other funds, the special funds we have, the court funds, the bond funds, the.
That's your debt service. And,
yes,
okay.
If you look at the top of that slide there, we have total 53 funds. That 47 million is in those funds 1, 3, 5, 6, and 10, and a 45. The other 47 funds, whatever, contain the other 11 million there.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that is, and I'm not getting on Paris News or any news, but I had people call me and they went, "Y'all went to a $58 million budget," and I said, "Well, that's $15 million more than it was last year." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Y'all's budget was like $44 million last year," and that was and the operational budget is what I'm really concerned about. That's what the citizens are looking at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I want to clarify that for the public.
Yeah.
And then on tax levy, and that is the actual dollars, whether your appraised value went up, your appraised value stayed the same at the appraisal district. We do we're looking at a 43 and some change.
It's 45.
45,373 from a 48,078 per 100. I guess you'd call charge for your taxes on your property. So what levy wise different? It was $8-9 million. Is that right?
Yeah, the total M&O is $8,030,000.
Okay. What was our levy in 2021?
2021, it was
or 2020. I'm sorry.
Yes, I got that down here a little bit further down here. Let's see your property. Okay, let me get it in here. Our levy for operational was
property tax increase is $537,000, right?
Yes, yeah, it was $7.46 million.
So the public has asked. Not everybody is concerned, but there's been some concern because they just didn't understand. And I was driving down the road trying to figure it out too, and I thought it's not that much because we're going down on our tax rate, but there is a $537,000 more dollars that we're levying from tax funds or from property taxes. So that is a substantial amount of money for anybody involved. When you look at it on a big scale budget, it's not. And when we look at the not only what we're talking about as far as sewer and water, we've got a big project coming up there. We've got a big project coming up with our raises and what we're talking about doing with our salary. So I just want the public to understand there is more money being spent. There's no doubt about it. We're spending more money. But we've also taken stuff out of our budget. We've taken positions that have not been filled that were previously in our budget.
Correct.
We've taken those out because they're not currently being used, or we haven't hired those people in there. So there's a deficit there. Also, too, I wanted to be kind of touchy on where we're going to buy some equipment. Those equipment things, and the way I understood it, was from a special grant, special fund, or money that we don't normally get that we could put in there for
Yes.
mainly water sewer type equipment.
Yeah, American Rescue Plan, yes.
American Rescue, ARPA.
ARP, yeah, ARP,
ARPA,
that's
that's, okay. So I explained that to a couple of people. They were, we're gonna go into, we're gonna have some more debt service. Well, no, there's government funds out there, and we haven't even looked at our new infrastructure bill that was passed, or in the works of being passed right now in DC. So maybe some money there too as well, but we gotta jump on those things.
Yep.
I mean, and I've had several calls. Well, we don't need to be in the mill and overlay business. And I said, no, we don't need to be in the mill and overlay business, but we need a mill and overlay machine. Cold mix on top of water pipes that have broke on a brand new nice street, 33rd. I live right behind my house. Collegiate, there's several of them. We can go in there and put hot mix on top of that. We have a better product then. And in an emergency situation, y'all can fix it. And also, too, if we've got some streets out there that we can do, that we feel comfortable with, that we don't have a bunch of base issues and things, we can go fix those. Is that kind of the precipice behind that equipment?
Yes, it is.
I guess another question I had, too, on tenured transfers. So civil service and how that works, McKinney or Frisco, or one of those took out civil service years ago, and I'm guessing they base their some way they do that with the unions now, or something. I'm not really sure how that works. So right now where we're at, we're having to hire firemen, train them. They're going to stay with us a couple of years, and there's better opportunity out there, obviously, because they're going elsewhere, and we've got probably a little bit of an issue with keeping people for a long time because we just don't have the pay scale that some of these other. If we go out and we're recruiting going forward with the new plan, are we going to be able to recruit police and fire, even EMS guys that are tenured somewhere else, and bring them to that tenure level, that phase or step, I guess you'd say? Say if you had a guy that was 8 years police, he was I don't know the hierarchy, but let's say he's a captain at Frisco and he's making X, and we want to recruit him to Paris. He's wanting to come to Paris. He applies to Paris. Is he going to get his step 6 or captain or whatever the year?
I don't know the answer to that one myself. The civil service part, that's a tricky law there. So I don't know if
Right.
Thomas, if you know the answer to that. I know you've been with civil service for quite some time. Do you know how that works, or if you want to come up with it?
And this may be a fire, either way.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out, because I don't want us to, giving more money is great, but are we going to get what we're after? And then I've got maybe a catch-22 that maybe we could look at.
Current civil service law doesn't allow a lateral transfer from another department in at that seniority level.
Okay.
There are things that can be done through collective bargaining agreements and meet and confer between the associations, as you were speaking of, and the city government, but that's not something that the City of Paris or the Firefighters Association has ever pursued here.
Okay.
So to say it can't be done would be a misnomer, but under current civil service law, the way things stand, no, it couldn't. Everybody comes in, they start at the base level. What I think we will be able to do is we will be able to attract some of these people that are already certified, though,
Yeah.
to where hopefully I don't have to hire a young man or a young lady and send them to school for 6 months, pay for their education, pay their wages, pay overtime to cover that slot while they're going to school, just to lose them a year or two later. So I see a definite benefit.
I just think being a young man and growing up, a lot of people, my generation is not the best at saving. They're not the best at doing retirement plans. I'm not the best at it either, I can tell you. We like to get our money and we like to take it and we put it where we want to put it. And I'm just thinking as a recruiting tool for police and fire, maybe EMS as well. I don't know if that falls in the same lines, but if you have a deal where we're at 714, or that's what we're proposing, if we took those dollars, the 714, and stayed at the 612 and did some kind of sign-on bonus, some kind of carrot to give to someone to move, because that's what we're seeing in some of these other communities. I'm just totally throwing the idea out. I don't know if that's something you want to look at.
The 714 doesn't apply to the fire. They have their own separate pension program. It's
Okay.
actually a different program than this.
Right.
714 would apply to police, but it's actually for all of the employees other than fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my question. I saw that and I thought about it, and I'd heard 100 different variations of things that and you hear. I wouldn't know where to start with any of that, so that's why I asked.
Sure.
So training dollars would be down, we think, once we go into this new pay scale.
Well, I'm hoping so, yes. I mean, once we get people hired, and obviously until we get people hired, and particularly in police, we're going to have some training dollars there. But the goal being, you get a person hired, you pay them well, they'll be here for a while. And that's never always a guarantee, but that's the goal. In the future, training will go down.
So the other night we were 14 police officers down, and I think we were 3 or 4 firemen down. We're thinking, we feel comfortable though that where we're going and headed to compensation wise, we think that'll at least get us pretty close to solving the.
Yes, that's a big part of it. And so, Chief Salter, do you want to speak to, or Chief Tuttle, do you want to speak to that, or?
Can we respond to the question about the sign-on bonus?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Currently, you were talking about getting people with experience. What we have done in the past, let's say, for instance, we hire an officer with 8 years' experience. We'll bring him in. We won't start him on the lower level. We'll bring him up and start him on that seniority level that's comparable to whatever experience he has.
Gotcha.
And we also have a sign-on bonus that we've used a few times. It's a $5,000 sign-on bonus. If you have a year's experience, then you're eligible for that bonus.
And not a former employee.
Yeah, not a former employee that just left and turned around and come
I'm
right
just
back.
thinking, man, I'm telling you, when you're up against it, that police officer looks and he goes down here and Walmart, they pay, I don't remember how many dollars for a truck driver now. They can't get truck drivers. A lot of businesses can't get truck drivers. Truck drivers are a hard thing. But police officers usually has a pretty good record. They can go get a CDL and they can go. So what you're competing against some of that stuff too. And that's kind of what I'm saying is how are we sure I'm all about it and I want to do it, but I want to make sure we're as competitive as we can be, because I don't want to just say, okay, we're going to bump everybody and then we're 2 years down the road and we're still 10 or 12 because we're competing. I mean, that's,
This is definitely going to put us in a lot better position to compete than what we are right now.
Okay.
No doubt.
Okay. Extra equipment, and this kind of goes back to the paving stuff too. I'm all about yellow iron. I love it. It depreciates. It's one of those things that we're going to continue to. Thank y'all very much. It's gonna something that's always we're gonna eat at, trying to have the right equipment and everything. Mm-hmm. Is there any thought process of going forward? Because we're gonna add some new equipment. Is there some old stuff out there? Is there things that we can get rid of to try to offset some of these costs? Because
we do auction about every year. We do auction off our old equipment per procurement, per law, how we do that correctly. And so, but we just had a big auction here a few months ago, and Gene, we had a large auction here. We sold a lot of equipment in that auction, and and also we do trade things in. If we have something that's of value, go for a new backhoe. We have an old backhoe that's still working. We can trade it in. We do that as well. And so, but yes, we do get rid of equipment and try to make money off of that.
I want us to be really cautious with, and we're really good at a lot of things, but when you go and add 4 or 5 more processes, no matter you're talking, mainly in public works, obviously, or even in the city sewer and water, and that, we can get too spread out, and you can be a jack of all trades and not a king of a few. So that's the only thing that kind of I'm worried about. I just want to be cautious about going forward.
Yeah.
Is if we get into mill and overlay, or we get into extensive street work and things of that sort, is there ways that we can offset that? maybe with a revolving contract with, or bidding some of that stuff out as a revolving door with local contractors, or bid it out to whoever to maybe do some of that stuff. Now, obviously, if we go fix a water line on Lamar, we got to fix it right then, and it's not going to make sense for us to have somebody on call because they're moving equipment and everything. Y'all are obviously going to do that cheaper, but if we've got some big site projects where we're having to go out, maybe even put in electric, some of that stuff we talked about at the Gene Stallings Park. If you feel comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that. I want us to be very cautious about adding too much to our plate when we've got, some issues that we're still working through.
No, I agree, yes. Particularly to the asphalt overlay machines, obviously that's still a tentative item under the American Rescue Plan. I'm not confident we'll be able to get it just yet. I want to propose it just in the budget for now, just to get it in there in case we can do it. But I'm going to be sitting down further with Michael Smith and Rufus Hill, because they've told me we can use it, but I want to see more staff, hope we can get more staff hired. So it'd be a later thing next year before I might even engage that. But I just want to have it available in the budget to where if we can
And
do it, we can.
I'm not picking on the mill and overlay thing, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying in general,
Yeah.
I keep saying that because that's what comes to mind, but there's some other equipment in there you're purchasing and looking at. And then you've also got your airport. We're taking that back over. That's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for us, but I mean, not anything over the top. And we get spread out, and that's the only thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, yep.
I think that pretty much covers everything for me, Mayor. Thank y'all again very much.
Very good comments.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Anything else from Mr. Weatherly for the comparable pay study? We can let him go after that.
Well, I would just like to comment that I've shaken hands and met almost every employee in the city over the last couple of months. And I've assured them that they're valued members of our team, and that Grayson was working very hard to bring their pay up, and I think he's done a good job of that. I don't think it's perfect, but none of us are perfect. And I would like to just show him that appreciation. I've compared, when I talked to a lot of you at your workplace, that the football team has all different positions, and they're not all paid the same. And, is that equity? I don't know. But it's not going to be perfect, but I think this is a start. And again, I will say it's a start that former administrations and former councils have kicked the can down the road, and at some point we've got to bite the bullet and do it. And I just appreciate you stepping out there and doing it. And Mr. Weatherly, appreciate your part in this. So I have no further questions about salary. Any other council members?
All right. Well, thank you all for that. Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we appreciate that. And so we'll be working with him over the next year, and even beyond that. Like I said, will be nice thing about having a talented consultant like this will be, as we get new positions or as we reclassify, we have a good asset with Mr. Weatherly there. So well, Matt, with that, you can go and sign off, and we'll keep on going. So thank you. Let's see here. Russell, I'll let you close out Zoom. Okay, with that, go back to my slideshow. Okay, I know how to go backwards. All right. right, with that, what I thought we might do is in case anyone has any questions on any particular department, I thought I would just kind of do a quick overview of each department itself and just hit some highlights. If you have any questions, either I or the staff will be able to answer those to the best of our ability here. So again, starting with the department number 11, City Council. This is your department, and so it is showing a decrease of $16,000 this coming fiscal year because we had the pay study shown in this budget here. Otherwise, the lines relatively stayed the same as you saw in your attachment in your section 3 there. Overall expenses there are just insurance, public notices, utilities, maintenance, the generic stuff there. So very little change in that line there. And of course, I'd like to also remind too, if anyone wants to go to any conferences or any trainings, we have money for that. And so I'd like to encourage every council member that if you want to go to a TML event, a webinar, or an in-person one, please let myself or my executive assistant know. We'll get you signed up. Those are excellent opportunities for you all to go and see the big pool we're swimming in. And Texas is the big state. Legislation affects us. It's good for us to keep an eye on what's going on down there. City Manager Department, Department 12, we are increasing $187,000. That's because of the Assistant City Manager is what that is. $120,000 of the starting pay plus around $30,000 roughly benefits. That's a rough number there. And so if you so choose to approve that, that will show up in this department here. Otherwise, the typical office expenses for this department here. Not much else changed in the line-to-line comparisons on that department there. And at any point, if you want to stop me in any department, please stop me. Otherwise, I'll keep on rolling.
I would just like to make one comment. Paris is about the size of city or a little larger where you start having an assistant manager.
Yes.
Is that what you?
Yes, correct, yes. And sometimes you see two of them. And so there's just so much work to be done and so much work that I'm not getting done. And so it'd just be nice to have that extra help. And one, it could be an asset for the staff. They'd have some more readily available than my very tight, busy schedule. And secondly, I can get into more higher level tasks, being more involved with the council, being more involved in upper level decision making, and I can kind of float more instead of having to get into the day-to-day grind of things. I can be more floating across, and as well as I can also be involved in the state matters as well. Again, like I said before, we have to stay tuned into our big brothers above us, and that does affect us. Hence SB 2 and other things that come down through mandates, and so we need to be keeping an eye on that. So, and lastly, personal-wise, it would allow me an opportunity to go home more often, and so I would sure appreciate that. So, a little bit of a selfish part with that, but I would greatly appreciate that. So. City Attorney Department, Department number 13, a change of $26,000. Again, because of the pay study. Most of these you're going to see going forward, any increase is primarily because of the pay study. A lot of our lines from operational, utilities, insurance, postage, those things relatively stayed about the same. And so if you look through section 3 there, we gave you several years worth of data. And if you looked at last year's budget, you'll see a lot of lines where they didn't change at all. And a lot of our departments, they do a good job of being frugal and keeping under the same budget there. But so primarily, a lot of comparable pay study increase is what you see here. Other big expenses there are the prosecutor contracts. We do have to hire attorneys once in a while for prosecution, as well as other takings claims. Those things are not covered by TML. We do have a case right now that we are working on, actually 2 cases, and so we're having to hire outside attorneys for that TML will not cover, as well as a delinquent tax attorney, Tracy Pounders. Many of you have met him recently and before as well. Does an outstanding job. What his job basically is, he goes out there and makes sure that we collect the taxes that need to be paid. And so a lot of people do not pay their taxes. A little reminder, okay, hey, if you have to pay, and so that's critical to our operation. So he does that for us, and otherwise typical office expenses there. Municipal Court, Judge Hunt is here today. Increase of $6,000 again because of the pay study. Otherwise, typical office expenses in that line. Not a lot of changes there for that department. City Clerk Department, Janice Ellis, Department 15, a change of $9,000 roughly. Again, the pay study. Typical office expenses there. These first few are mostly administrative departments there. Accounting and auditing, this is Gene Anderson's department, a change of about $10,000, again, primarily because of the pay study for his 4 positions he has underneath him. And otherwise, typical office expenses, the consultants we have, our accounting software for our accounting system is paid through that. Those are the primary expenses. Otherwise, it's a bunch of general office type expenses. Not a lot of changes there. Police department, a little bit bigger. Increase of $243,000 in this department here. This is by and large definitely because of the pay study. We have approximately 70 employees in that department, so a lot of money tied to that. We have some building repairs that's tied. We're also having an increase in some building repairs in that department, some HVAC needs in that department. Otherwise, you see in here some large expenses always with training, uniform expenses, gear. Again, we have a lot of employees, a lot of gear, a lot of needs in order to stay up on those requirements. Vehicles, fuel, animal control is through this department, insurance, third-party agreements for our software, our CAD systems. And then we also have three new patrol units. We have an annual rotation for that. You don't want to fall behind our patrol units, and so we do about 3 or 4 every single year in order to keep up on that because they do take a beating. And so this last year we actually lost I think 5 units because of accidents. And 5, and they didn't cause those, and so unfortunately, when we're out and about that often, we do get hit once in a while. So, but we had about 4 that were total. Thankfully, insurance stepped in and paid for about 3's worth, but it's just good for us to keep on rotation going with that. Capital requests for the police here through our CARES funding. This is fund number 4, I think it is. You'll see here a long list. These are relatively small items here. I tried to even out between the police, the fire, and EMS dollar-wise between those 3 there. So even though there's a lot of items here, there's a lot of smaller ticket items here. And so, but I listed all these here for you. This is in your packet as well. We have some big things here. Also, we need the incinerator there is for our animal pound. We do have to process that once in a while, and for animals that have passed away. And our incinerator is on its final legs, and so we need to replace that pretty soon. We have some training, some HVAC repairs, a dog run out there at the facility. We do need a CIP vehicle that's outdated. Our CAD system is critical. That is actually also about 3 or 4 years behind on warranty, and so we need to get that thing caught up immediately for that system there. But otherwise, just a lot of needed equipment. Chief Salter is his first year, so he walked in. He saw a bunch of needs that he needs in order to take this part to the next step. And so I'm pleased to be able to throw a lot of this stuff into this budget here using the CARES funding. Again, the CARES funding there is for our first responders primarily, so I feel this is a good use for that. So, and again, if you have any questions, let me know, or Chief Salter and Chief Tuttle can answer those. Fire, another large department in our general fund, an increase of $600,000. They were the furthest behind overall in pay, and so if you look at their studies, they were 25 to 30% below comparable across the board there. So that's why you see a larger number here for this department here, and they will tell you that. And so I think I was not even here for a month when I met with them. That was one of their concerns, obviously, rightfully so. So pay study is obviously a big part of this. Otherwise, other typical expenses you see there, large expenses are, of course, training, bunker gear. We do need to have a rotation of that for our air packs. I came from a community in Nebraska City where we did not rotate that out, and that can get very expensive. And you need that gear to fight fires. And so it's good that we can rotate that out with our 50-plus employees in that department there. And we have a small fire truck financing program. We've got some financing for some equipment. I would like to, in the future, get into a regular rotation process. We have one for EMS. We rotate an ambulance every year they last 7 years. We rotate one every year. We have 7 ambulances. Police, 3 or 4 every single year. We don't have anything for fire necessarily. And I think we need to start a program like that pretty soon to start rotating our equipment out. And I tried to do that this year, but the numbers just didn't work out this year. So, but talking to Chief and Monaco, we're still good for a couple of years. We need to start getting ahead of that. I also note here that up until this year, code enforcement was a sub-department, and so I did remove that from fire and put it under Andrew Mack, Community Development Department. So you'll see that under the Community Development Department budget instead. Some capital requests through the CARES funding. We have some portable radios. They need a new storage building for station number 3. They've outgrown their facility with some equipment there, so they need to move some stuff outside, but keep it out of the rain. SCBA regulators, as well as a new emergency power generator. All of our stations have generation except for station number 3. So this would complete that process. I believe, Chief Monagle, is that correct? Yep, they would all be powered at that point here. In case we had a winter storm like we did, or blackout, we'd be ready to have power at these facilities, and we can get the doors open, and so we can get out and fight fires if we had to. So I get some bigger ticket items that are kind of.
I got a question on fire. So some of the improvements that we're doing, not only on equipment, obviously pay to the firefighters wouldn't change us, but our fire rating, I remember.
Yes.
2 years ago, we talked about that. Are we going to improve our fire rating with some of the stuff that we've done,
Chief? So,
the reason I ask that's an insurance deal for a lot of homeowners, and that's a big piece of the puzzle for them.
No, sir, nothing in this budget will allow us to improve that. Right now, as a matter of fact, we're barely hanging on to the 3 that we have.
Okay.
Some changes came about through NFPA last year in 2020 that mandated minimum staffing increases that we're just not able to meet yet. We're still able to do our job effectively, and I'm not worried about that end of it, but that is something that will need to be addressed in the future just to maintain what we have now.
What do we have to do to what are we missing? Equipment or people?
Well, it's a whole combination of things. There's so many things that go into that. Fire is the biggest part of it, but also water supply, dispatch. There are several other things that go into that rating. But on the fire side right now, manpower is probably the biggest thing. NFPA says that I'm supposed to have 16 people on scene at a fire scene right now, and we just can't maintain that. We were at 14. That's our minimum staffing, and that's what it was up until 2020. When they changed those standards, then that kind of took that away from us, so I'm not able to meet that now.
I got you.
But
With the new, 3 or 4 firefighters is where you're behind right now.
well, that's 3 or 4 per shift.
3 or 4 per shift.
Yes,
I
sir.
got you.
Just
Okay.
just to meet the new standards would take a pretty significant increase in manpower.
Good.
And
So our new budget, talking salary wise, then we think we're going to get the salaries, we're going to get the guys hired. That's going to maybe make that a little better, or no?
no, I don't think that's going to affect it at all, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
we need like 6 or 7 more positions on top of that in order under the new ISO ratings.
Okay.
And so that's the problem. That's going to be a discussion down the road to try to add staffing, another building or so forth, in order for us to meet the new standards. So we want to get to full staff now, but like I said, we need to add like another 8 in order to make that difference there. So we can't even touch that in this budget. So,
I got you.
yeah. Community development. This is Andrew Mack's department. We increased that by $200,000. The reason there's a lot going on here. Also, we had some pay study here, but last year we budgeted for a city planner, but we changed it to a director of planning and community development. So there's a price difference there. We've also we consolidated our community development coordinator position. That was actually split between engineering and community development. I put it all under community development, which is where she operates out of. So that shows that's part of that $200,000 increase. It's actually a equal cut in the engineering department. You'll see in a little bit here for that position. We're also adding an assistant, a billing official, billing inspector to the position, and then also one of the capital requests is a new restroom, permanent restroom at the farmers market, for $30,000 for that. So that all that wraps into that $200,000 increase there. So new positions as well as the restroom at the farmers market. Then otherwise, we do have some HBC grant funding and some other grant match funding in that department as well. Main Street, this is Sherry Bedford, a change of about $9,000, all pay study primarily. And her budget, this is where you see, of course, travel expenses, but promotional activity, the festivals, the downtown activities, that's where you see those budgets spent out of. Maintenance downtown, farmers market, that all comes out of the Main Street budget. Code enforcement is Robert Talley's department. This again, we moved this from fire to community development this year. It's a very good fit. I also consolidated those staff into the annex across the street there for better efficiency, for communication. I've always found that you can communicate better when your office next door to each other, and even though we're in the same compound in the area, there's just nothing replaces being under the same roof. So I think that's been working out very well. So the change is about $13,000, all pay study. Otherwise, one of their big expenses is postage. We do have a lot of nuisances, as you all know, and so we do chase all those down all the time. So a lot of postage expenses for that because of state law requirements. We also show our demolition expenses, our nuisance abatement, and our lot mowing through this budget here. We did increase that last year to $100,000 for house demolition. It was $80,000 for years, and we're trying to eat away at that large list we have. And so those costs are between $5,000 to $10,000 per house. Is that right, Mr. Talley? There you are. Is it about $5,000 to $10,000 per house to demo it now?
They're usually averaging 3 to 4 on your average, but on some of our larger ones, especially since we went up to removing the slab, yes, they can get up around 10,000 for some of the bigger houses.
Yeah, so 3 to 4 on average, but I have asked them to start moving slabs because that makes the property more marketable afterwards for resale. So we have that in that line there, and of course a lot of lot mowing. And we unfortunately people tend to not take care of their yards, so we have to do that for them. So. Then otherwise, a capital request here, a small one through the CARES funding. I am asking they do get some body cameras. There's a lot of he said, she said when it comes to code enforcement. Code enforcement is they're never the good guys, and so everyone likes firefighters, but no one ever likes code enforcement. And so with that, it's always good. It's good protection for our staff, and likewise good accountability for the staff as well. And so Mr. Mack and Mr. Talley and I have been discussing we'll be getting some body cameras for them next year for that process. So
maybe the council members as well.
Was that, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hughes has done a great job of going out there and assisting us and backing us up. And so, engineering, unfortunately, we don't have a city engineer right now, but we're still looking for that. Again, you see a decrease of $102,000. Again, this is where part of the position for the community development coordinator was in this department. I moved that to community development now, which is where the position belongs. So that's part of the cut there, as well as the previous city engineer. She was at a higher step. We're looking at hiring at step 1, so that's part of the reason why there's a big decrease in this department here. Typical expenses are office expenses, consulting engineering firms. We do work with Hayter Engineering as our interim engineering firm, doing an outstanding job for us right now. Staff is very pleased working with Hayter right now. And also, we do ADA projects to be determined. We have about $15,000 in the budget there just for miscellaneous ADA things like sidewalks here and there. We have heaving or some. We have some money there. I actually used some of that money this last year for the pump track. We did some ADA improvements out there, part of the pump track project. Then also engineering software, our GIS system and everything. A capital request here. We do have a new GIS employee. Matthew Mercewick, doing an outstanding job. If you ever meet Mr. Mercewick, just excitement. And he loves coming to work every day, doing an outstanding job for us. So he's busy trying to take us to the next level on GIS. GIS, that's pretty cool software, and a lot of cool things can happen through GIS. And so we're doing a small checkup there with the company to help us go to another level with GIS. Public Works, Michael Smith, Public Works Director. This is kind of the office staff portion of Public Works. Increase of $26,000. This is all pay study related for the staff in that department, and then again typical office expenses there for Public Works for this particular department here. And then we'll go through the sub departments next. Parks, Recreation, Right-of-Way, Pool. Superintendent Bill Lowranger oversees that under Public Works. Increase of $147,000. Again, pay study. There's a number of employees there, so it adds up. We also have some capital requests. There's a finish mower, a stump grinder, and a UTV mule for a lot of our softball programs. And those equipment are on their final legs. They're about 10 to 15 years old equipment. And so it's needed to replace that equipment so we can maintain our ditches, right-of-ways, fields, and that equipment there. And also, we can do some of our own grinding of the stumps instead of paying some of the labor fees for contractors on some of that. Otherwise, we have a regular mower rotation in that department. We do a lot of mowing, so it's good that we can keep a rotation there to keep fresh mowers. We do rotate one mower a year. We do have some money for our Trail to Paris asphalt. We put about $30,000 towards asphalting the Trail to Paris every year. It does wear out over time. It's highly used, and so we do put money towards that every year. And again, if the state takes that over, that will go away. And so that expense will go away if the state were to take that over. Then, of course, mowing services, lots. As you know, we have 20-plus parks, a lot of greenage to mow, and they're busy every day. And then we also have to contract out mowing in the Parks Department quite often. Then, of course, pool chemicals. Streets and Highways, Rufus Hill, superintendent of this department, $93,000 increase here. Again, all pay study primarily for his staff. Typical expenses, fuel, contracted services. We do have our concrete third party through this budget here. This is where you find all things streets and alleys from patching. We primarily just patch. It's all we can. That's all we can afford to do. That's all we can do at this point without the right equipment. And so that's what we're doing right now is patching with some small improvements here and there, but not primarily patching. As we discussed earlier, I do propose us trying to get an asphalt grinder and asphalt layer for this department. But again, we will carefully plan that out. And if we don't feel we can do that, we can man that. We won't do that. I hate to buy equipment and just have it sit there. And but we're looking at that as a possible asset to our community. Traffic and public lighting. This is Edwayne Samus as our superintendent for this department here. A decrease there slightly. This is an offset between the pay study and also we bought some equipment last year that's no longer in the budget this year. So an offset there for that a negative $2,000 there. But this is where we pay for all of our utility lights throughout town, for our street lights in town. This gets run through this budget here. And also, this is where we show all of our traffic marking, this lines and stop signs and those pieces there. Garage, $45,000 increase, all pay study. And we also have a small capital request to repair our car wash bay. We do have a large fleet, and washing them is critical to maintaining that fleet. And so we need to do about $8,000 in repairs to that bay. And then we have some, of course, tools and utilities. All the expenses to fix a vehicle are shown in the other departments. So if a police car breaks down, we show the expense in the police department budget. Fire, streets, that's where you see those expenses. That's why it's a relatively smaller budget compared to what you might think it would be, because all the expenses for maintenance are done in the other budgets. EMS, Russell Thrasher, our new EMS director, increase of $275, again, primarily pay study, but we do have some, we do need to replace, of course, medication prices we have for our trucks are going up. As you understand, COVID-19 is impacting that, so we do have higher pricing for a lot of our medicines and other first responder disposable PPE. We do need to replace our LifePak EKG monitor equipment. Those things are past their life expectancy, and those are actually required in state law that we need to replace those. So it's a larger expense for that. We also need to add some new safes to our ambulances in order to keep our medications locked down. So. We do in a budget every year. We replace an ambulance. Those last 7 years, so we have 7 ambulances. Every year we replace one. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to probably skip through these things here so we can keep moving here. So, but stop me if you see anything. One new thing here I will say at the very bottom there is Mr. Thrasher and I, we do have some exciting new plans for this upcoming year. We want to look at our billing programming. There's some neat opportunities we can see there for some greater efficiency, and so we're pursuing that currently. We had a meeting this morning on that. And also too, we do need to examine our rates. We've been checking around other communities, and they are rather low. And so we do subsidize this department right now. And so it'd be good if we were to look at those rates through Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance to help kind of offset that general expense that we're having there. We'll be working on that this next year. And of course, capital requests for in the CARES funding, some tech gen, some rescue pants, some DEF system, a LifePak, the mounts for the equipment that we're buying. Some of you took a tour of East Station. You saw the floor over there. You saw the fencing, rough shape, and so a lot of tiles either chipped or missing over there. I know Mayor Portugal and Mayor Pro Tem Hughes took a tour of that recently. and as well as Councilmember Palmka saw it as well. Pretty rough shape over there, so we need to replace that over there. And also, too, a big expense here is our striker side rails and power loads. Right now, when the staff go to pick up a patient in the back of the truck, it's manual. A lot of back work, and so they create stretchers that are automatic. They're back savers. I'm surprised we don't have any. I think we have one or two, but every ambulance needs one, and so this would put one in, I think, almost every ambulance in order to help prevent some workers' comp claims. So we should do things smarter, not harder. Paris Band, that didn't change. We do fund that every year as contracted services. The library, Tim DeGelder is our new library director, a change of $6,000 there. I'm sure if he had more time on the job, he would have given me more, I'm sure. And so, but it's primarily a pay study. Typical things like books, media, building maintenance, electronic software. I do want to put a plug in here. Check out what's going on in our library. There's a lot of very exciting things coming up. Mr. DeGelder has sent to me some new programming ideas he's got planned for the rest of the year. Some really cool stuff. And so I'm really excited to see what's coming up in our library. Then we also have just a general expense Department 89. This is where we see our nonprofit contracting policy. As you know, on the 25th, we'll be sitting down to look to review applications for nonprofit funding. And we budgeted $100,000 for that. That is a slight increase from last year. It was like $89,000 we spent last year, so that is in this budget here. This is also where we spend out our hot tax for the VCC. That comes out of this department here. That price, the VCC has been going up. We've had an increase in hotel sales, which is excellent. That money's gone up, so that's a pass through to the VCC, and yes. Our IT department decreased to 126. There's a mixture here. Mr. Klinkerman was our former EMS IT director, so there's a change in payroll in that line there, in that budget there. So that's reflected here. Obviously, we're showing the payrolls differently now that he's departed. And also, too, we had a large server replacement project last year. That's obviously done, and so that's on the budget this year. So that's why there's a big drop in the budget in IT. That's all the general funds. So moving on to the airport fund, our brand new fund there. That's also a major increase here. We're adding $400,000 to this budget here because we're now selling fuel. We're buying and selling fuel now. That's why we have a large increase in that budget there. So we also have the revenue to balance with that. But we're also adding a new employee. I did announce to the council this week we have now hired an employee. He will start September 1st, and so we're looking forward to having him on board. His name is Paul Strahan. And so excellent credentials. I'm excited to have him start with us. Water and Sewer Fund, this is a Fund 10. Overall revenue last year was $15.2 million. This year, $16.6 million, increase of 1.3. This is primarily because we increased our rates for the new wastewater treatment plant bond. We have to start paying that debt this year. We also have some a transfer from general fund to help offset some expenses and some capital expenses in this budget here. Expenditures. Again, equivalent is budget is balanced, so $1.3 million increase there to balance the $1.3 million revenue increase there. Pay study, capital equipment purchases, and increased debt, so I'll be going through those here next. The warehouse is under the Water and Sewer Fund. Gene Anderson is over this department with Sean Steinkamp, our supervisor there. A slight increase of $7,000. This is the pay study impacted for that budget there. Water and sewer billing, again, Mr. Anderson is over this department. Tammy Strickland is our supervisor. Increase of $257. Pay study, as well as this is where we show our admin fee transfer to the general fund. Every year we do transfer funds from the water and sewer fund to the general fund to help balance, and also to offset property taxes. That is shown here. And we also have our data processing expenses are going up for our billing software. Water production, this is Mr. Doug Harris and Danny Rowell is our superintendent there. Increase of 209. Pay study, chemical prices have come up. As you know, you approved the chemical bids this last Monday, and prices have gone up because of COVID and other reasons. And we also have two large capital requests. We need to replace a Pat Mays intake number 4 pump. As I discussed on Monday, it's starting to vibrate. We replaced number 1 this year, but we have 4 pumps, and those pumps is what feeds water to the community, so we need to stay ahead of those. And also, too, we are doing a large project with our filtration filtration plant. We need to do some repairs in one of our cells at the water plant there. And another large expense is under the American Rescue Plan. We're looking at buying that backup generator for the ground storage facility under the American Rescue Plan funding. So that's part of our water production department. Water distribution. This is Michael Smith, Public Works Director, and Denny Edwards, Superintendent. A decrease of 159. This is primarily because we bought a lot of equipment last year. Obviously, that equipment's been purchased and done, so that goes off the budget this year. And also our electric expenses are going down in this department here. So I see a decrease in there for that budget.
Hey, Grace, could you go back to the backup generator and explain
Yep.
that more?
Yep. And so, again, the history behind that, back in February, our ground storage facility, the water starts at Pat Mays, it goes to the water treatment plant, gets treated, then it gets pumped to the ground storage, and from the ground storage is where it goes into the community. It goes out to our distribution system, the water towers and everything. Back in February, when we had our winter storm, they were doing the rolling blackouts, quote unquote, and unfortunately ours was in that basically 8-hour rolling blackout we had there in that part of town. And so when that facility has no power, we have no water. And so it became very, very clear to us immediately that we need backup generation there. And so it's a very large generation need, very large pumps. And so it's about almost a $500,000 expense turnkey for this. This is available through the buy board, through cooperative purchasing, so we can get best pricing through that. But this would allow our facility to no longer be a weak link. And so we would have generation there to where if we lose power, we can keep on pumping. So.
Thank you.
While you're on electricity, whose budget is the electricity from this room come from?
Probably city council and city manager and so forth. But
Let's save those two departments some money and turn the air up if we can.
if someone can help me with that, please.
Sweat is pouring off any
Over
of
there
you.
and over there. So
Thank you.
Yep.
You cold? Are you cold? I'm always cold. Huh? I'm always cold too.
Our capital
Thank
improvement
you.
department, CIP department, part of the as a sub-department of the water distribution system. This is Mr. Paul Morgan, superintendent, under Michael Smith, the director. A decrease there because we bought a bulldozer last year, and we don't need to buy one this year. I will say it was vandalized recently. We had a part, I won't say burned off. It was stolen off our bulldozer, so we're having to go through insurance to get that replaced. People can be ridiculous, unfortunately. So, but that's really irked me a lot, and so. But we're getting that replaced, and so it's also between pay study and equipment purchase from last year is a reason for the decrease there. Now, this is a department that will be doing a lot of our water line extensions for our Gene Stallings Park, the Lions Head project, as well eventually the Southern Loop is my plan there. So these men are highly trained to lay their own water lines through the community. So great asset, and since I'm already paying for them, they save a lot of money in labor. So. Sewer maintenance, this is also under Denny Edwards, increase of $14,000, small increase there. Again, offset between the pay study as well as some equipment we bought last year. And under the CARES funding, we're looking at buying a jetter truck. The jetter truck, that's what unstops the blockages in the sewer lines. Critical piece of our equipment fleet, and so we got to have that. CIP sewer, again, Mr. Morgan, decrease of $70,000. Again, we bought some equipment last year. I think it was a Vactron. That's been purchased already. And so this is where we show laying our sewer lines as a city. Wastewater treatment plant, this is Mr. Doug Harris, as well as Mr. Tim Bright, superintendent, Mr. Bright. Decrease of $248,000. This is an offset between the pay study as well as we had about a $400,000 expense every year for the Garver engineering team. That is now being spent through our bond, and so that money budgeted there has gone to offset other expenses in the budget now. So. Lift station, department number 87. This is Kyle. I'm sorry. So, Doug, help me out. What's that? Sites. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Sites, and also Mr. Harris, And I'm trying to get everyone's name straight. And so $21,000 increase there, a pay study, as well as we're also looking to replace our Campbell Soup lift station control that is about 20 plus years old, and that is a large user. So we need to make sure that lift station is operational. Now get into our landfill sanitation department. This is Ed Wayne Samus, superintendent, again under Michael Smith as director. We do have revenue showing for, it's 1.07 million. There's a decrease 86,000. The reason for that is we're actually looking to transfer some money into a special equipment fund. I want to start saving some money up for a potential transfer station in that department, and that would allow us to instead of having to send our trash trucks to Blossom every day, twice a day, we can deposit it in town and have a larger truck then take it out there. So it'd be a lot of saving on our wear and tear of our trucks, as well as man hours. We have a lot of overtime because of having to truck out to Blossom every day, twice a day per truck. So we're looking at saving for a transfer station in the near future. So as a department, again, the decrease 86,000. That's for that transfer into the equipment fund. So not a lot of change in the sanitation department there. Very little change in that, and then no capital requests in that department. All right, that's all the departments, and so I apologize for going fast through that, and so, but I wanted to cover every department here. Any questions you have on any of the departments or any of the staff, or? Oh, very good. Well, yep.
Good job. If there are no questions, you must have covered everything.
Maybe so. So with that, I would like to turn to Gene Anderson real quick to talk about the timeline, and so we can discuss next steps. And if you have any more questions tonight, we can answer those. So.
And I would like to say Mr. Savage had a family emergency. He had to exit real quickly, and it's a wedding anniversary over here. So family first.
Absolutely.
Just to kind of let you know the steps that are coming forward at this point, since the budget's been presented to you. On September the 2nd, I'll have published the budget hearing notice and the tax rate notice that's required. Also, there are legal notices for the budget hearing and tax rate hearing, and all those get published on the 2nd of September. On the 13th of September, which is a regular council meeting, we're scheduled to have the hearing on the proposed budget and the hearing on the proposed tax rate. It is possible to adopt the budget on that same date if you don't have any proposed increases to the budget. We would have to have, and this is what we will have calendared out, is you can't adopt the tax rate on the same day you adopt the budget anymore like you used to be able to do. So we're scheduling a special meeting on September the 14th, which is a Tuesday, right after our regular meeting on the 13th, to adopt the proposed tax rate. And that will put us complete, with the adoption of the tax rate. We would then notify the appraisal district of the decisions made by the council so that they can begin to prepare, the tax statements to go out. And they like to have that as early as they can possibly get it, obviously, because that's a big job, preparation of those statements. There are some absolute drop-dead dates, in the calendar. I think we ought to stay away from those, because if we make a mistake and we miss a publishing date, for example, then I think we'll probably have to fall all the way back to the no new tax rate, because we can't legally move forward if we miss a timeline. And so I've tried to coordinate this with regular meetings and with enough time that if the Paris News, for example, can't publish on a day because their equipment goes down on a day that's critical to the process, that we would have time, for them to do something where we could, fall back and publish on a backup date. But It's a fairly tight schedule, so we pray the Paris News doesn't break down. And we've also taken into effect, the fact that the Paris News publishes only 3 days a week now. We've
On the
coordinated that
publishing
in.
dates, is there any provisions that we can do that electronically now, being everything's online? Is the posting dates, or they still have to be printed in a local publication?
We're required in the law to do both. Every notice and things we will put on our website, like the notice of what the proposed tax rate is, that's already been posted up, because it was brought to council's attention at the Monday meeting, so we've already had to put that up. And we'll add the proposed hearing dates for the budget hearing and the tax rate hearing. All of that will go on the website, as well as being published in the Paris News. In that quarter-page ad, just kind of like we've always had to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Good explanation. Appreciate you.
So with that, the next step would be to either, if you want to have any more workshops, otherwise we'd be looking at the August 23rd meeting to approve a budget for publication, for public notices. And, but I'll have to turn this over to you in case you have any more discussion, any more requests, any more things you'd like to study or work on.
I'm okay with the 23rd. If I have any more questions, I'll call Grayson directly, but I feel pretty confident with everything now.
Any more questions, Ms. Knox or Mayor Pro Tem Hughes?
No, all the questions that I have been answered, and I've talked to Mr. Path about some of the things. This is a very comprehensive budget package, but I appreciate your efforts. I remember last year I was in the audience observing your budget briefing, and I was impressed then. But I do remember you was very emphatic about the fact that the employees were underpaid, and your mission was to try to rectify that. So I think that we are there, and it can only get better from here. And to the employees of the city, I try my best to, every time I see you all, I tell you how much I appreciate you all, and for those who are viewing. So I know what it's like to be underpaid and overworked. It's hard to stay in those positions, but I appreciate you all that have chose to stay here and work in the city of Paris. So I really do appreciate you. I really do. And I'll continue to tell you that, and you may get tired of me telling you that, but that's okay, because I want you to understand that. And I appreciate, Grayson, and I ride with you all day. I trust your judgment and your team. And to my council, I appreciate y'all as well. I think we're doing a great job. Like like we said down there, that we're not perfect. Mr. Pilgrim said that earlier, and I agree with that. We're not, but man, we're doing a great job moving forward. So I really appreciate it. So I don't have any questions. I'm okay with the 23rd as well. And we can move forward.
Likewise. Thanks for your hard work and for the staff that backs you up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I would have one small request, if you would humor me with this. I wouldn't mind starting to advertise for an assistant city manager soon. And I know we haven't put a budget yet, but if we're talking 4 months away before I actually have some on board. But if that's at all, if that'd be okay, I'd love to get started on that process and start getting it written, advertised out there. And if that's something the council would be okay with me starting that process.
Would that take a motion?
I think so. If you guys are willing to let him do that, I guess a safer thing would be to do that in a motion. That's the safe thing to do, and it's not in a minute order somewhere.
I don't have a clue what
We
you
got
said.
23rd, or today's the 12th. I would say that we hold that to that meeting and
Yeah.
have that where everybody,
Yep.
with a formal meeting, if that's okay.
That's fine with me. Yes.
Is that
So.
good with y'all?
I'd feel better if the whole council were
Yes,
here.
I mean, yes, we need more members here.
Sounds good.
Okay?
okay with it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too, but
Yep.
let's give everybody a.
yes.
Yeah, I was hoping to have all 7 tonight, but I saw, I asked, put out there just in case to get y'all thinking about it, so.
And so just clarify that annual figure for that assistant manager. Is that
Yeah.
annual pay plus benefits or annual pay and benefits? Because I've had an
Yeah,
email about that. So could
Yeah, the
you clarify
figure that you saw in the table there is pay plus benefits. And so it's $120,000 starting pay and about roughly a $30,000 benefit total from health insurance and Social Security and retirement, all those pieces there. So, yeah. Thank y'all.
Seeing no further business, I hear a motion to adjourn
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.